Elon Musk is a billionaire, an inventor, a scientist, a designer, and one of the world's most innovative minds. He runs two companies that are trying to disrupt major industries that have been doing things the same way for decades. Aerospace with SpaceX and automobiles with Tesla. Tesla is making luxury all-electric cars, cars that have had a bit of controversy of late. Currently, SpaceX is essentially an intergalactic trucking company, taking loads back and forth from the International Space Station and bringing satellites up to orbit. In the future, it hopes to carry humans too. We met on a balcony overlooking the SpaceX factory floor. It was buzzing, literally and figuratively. The workers were preparing for an important launch on Monday. Elon Musk, pleasure to have you on.
Thanks for having me.
So this is the Dragon that goes up into space and is going to go up on Monday, correct?
Yeah, that's our Dragon spacecraft, or version 1, which is capable of taking cargo to and from the space station, including biological cargo like fish and mice and that kind of thing.
So when do human beings start going up in it, do you think?
So we expect to complete version 2 of Dragon, which will have astronaut transport capability in about 2 years.
And most of what you do now is send satellites up into space, right? That's how you pay the bills.
Exactly.
But you want to do something much more ambitious with SpaceX.
Yeah, I mean, the long-term aspiration is to develop the technologies necessary to transport a large number of people and cargo to Mars in order to create a self-sustaining civilization there. And that's really why I started the company, was because it seemed as though...
To create the possibility for life on other planets.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it sort of started off when I was thinking about what to do after PayPal, and I'd always been interested in space, but I didn't think there was anything that an individual could do in space. I mean, it seemed like the province of large governments. But I sort of started looking into it, and I went to the NASA website to find out when we're going to Mars, because it seems like, obviously, that is the next thing after the moon. And I couldn't find anything. So I was like, wow, this just seems very strange. Initially, I was under the impression that it was that we'd lost the will to do that, and I later came to the conclusion that I was quite wrong about that. I think the United States in particular is a nation of explorers.
So you decide you want to try and do this, and do you look at it as why did you decide transport was the most important thing? I mean, I think we would regard living on Mars as
that's the relatively easier thing. Yes, absolutely.
So we could live on Mars. Just getting there is the problem.
Yes, like I mean, right now getting to Mars is impossible. So, like, it's kind of doesn't matter what what you do when you get there if you can't get there. So the first order of business is to figure out how to get there, and it needs to be in a way that enables large numbers of people and cargo. It can't just be like a handful of people, because that's obviously not going to create a self-sustaining civilization. And Apollo was an amazing, inspiring thing for all of humanity, but the last time we went to the moon was like 1973 or 4, I believe. So we don't want to just have flags and footprints and then never go to Mars again. If we just have one mission, that will also be a super inspiring thing, but it's not going to fundamentally change the future of humanity.
So you have this Grasshopper rocket, which unlike most rockets, which can't, which are not reusable, this one gently comes back down in a kind of vertical land.
Yeah, absolutely. You can see the videos of this on the SpaceX website. The fundamental breakthrough, going back to the point of that developing a Mars transportation system, it has to be affordable to go. Like, it can't just be like billions of dollars per person to go to Mars. Then just no way you could establish a base on Mars at that cost. So we have to develop rockets that are rapidly and as close to completely reusable as possible. As an example, the Falcon 9 costs about $60 million. I mean, it's sort of like a jet, it's like, but the cost of the propellant is only about $200,000. So it's just like, you can imagine how expensive it would be if you had to buy a new plane every time you went somewhere. Very few people would fly. But refueling a plane is pretty easy.
We once talked about airplane travel, and I asked you why it is that with all this technological improvement over the last 30 or 40 years, the one thing that doesn't seem to have improved, and it is in the domain of the private sector, sort of, is jet travel.
Sure,
I mean, if
absolutely.
you're flying from New York to London, it takes about as long as it took 40 or 50 years ago. In fact, it takes longer.
It actually,
because
it actually does take longer because I mean, the 787, like my favorite sort of commercial airliner is the 747 because it actually goes quite fast, and it's actually incredible that thing was. I mean, the first iteration of it was designed in the 60s. I mean, since then, I don't think we've exceeded the 747,
Why?
which is nutty. I think, well, for the commercial airliner business, you essentially have a duopoly between Airbus and Boeing. And these big airplane programs are really long-term and they're quite expensive. And I think if you're in the senior management of one of those companies, it's a safer bet to just aim for a little incremental improvement than to try to aim for a radical improvement. Because generally, if you aim for a radical improvement and you're wrong, you'll get fired.
why doesn't SpaceX create the fastest jet plane in the world?
We got to focus on rockets.
When do you think you'll be able to achieve the aspiration of SpaceX of actually moving people to a place like Mars?
Well, I think we could probably send the first person in about 12 years.
Wow. Will you be that person?
Only if I'm confident that SpaceX will be fine if I die. That's, you know, if I was confident that the mission would continue if I wasn't around, then I would do it.
Elon Musk on his program to Mars. Lots more ahead from him, including his response to all the headlines about Tesla's cars catching fire.
New technology should have a spotlight on it, but it shouldn't have a laser on it.
Elon Musk says he doesn't get a lot of sleep these days. He's not only CEO and chief designer at SpaceX, he's also CEO and product architect at Tesla. Tesla produces luxury all-electric vehicles, and the company's cars have been in the news after some Model S sedans caught fire. Earlier in the week, but after our interview, the National Highway Transportation Safety Board announced an investigation into two of the incidents. The board had previously given the Model S a 5-star safety rating, its highest. Listen in to more of my interview with Elon Musk. You've heard all the press about Tesla, so let me first give you a chance to get it off your chest.
I've been like pistol whipped.
3 cars caught on fire. What's your response?
So the amount of national and international news headlines dedicated to 3 Tesla fires that caused no injury is greater than all of the gasoline fires that occurred in the United States, and
with all the other cars.
Yeah, which from mid last year to today is about 250,000 gasoline car fires, which caused about 400 deaths, something like 1,200 serious injuries. Our 3 non-injurious fires got more national headlines than 250,000 deadly gasoline car fires. That's mad. What the heck is going on? I mean, I realize like a new technology should have a spotlight on it, but it shouldn't have a laser on it.
So when you look at Tesla, the big concern many people have is scale. You're producing about 30,000 cars a year, but Toyota is producing
we're minuscule.
Millions. So
we get like way too much attention, good or bad.
And your market cap is almost as high as some of these car companies.
Well, it's gotten less in recent weeks, but yeah.
Do you think it's crazy, or do you think it's an appropriate indication of future growth?
Yeah, I mean, what I've actually said on more than one occasion is that I thought our valuation was more than we had any right to deserve. That we would do our best to fulfill those value expectations, and that I thought over time the value of Tesla would probably significantly exceed where it is today, or even where it was at a relatively high point a few weeks ago. But it would be, I think, silly for me to assert that Tesla is unequivocally worth, at one point we were like worth $22 billion. And we'll have somewhere over $2 billion in sales this year. That is an enormous amount of credit for future execution.
The heart of what interests you about Tesla, at least as I recall when we've talked, is that it's not a compromise, that a hybrid is something of a compromise between an internal combustion engine and a battery-powered engine. And
Exactly.
Here you can do it cleanly, but batteries just aren't that powerful enough, and they don't seem to improve enough to imagine a world powered by batteries, right?
I certainly can see that. And in fact, my opinion is that all transportation, with the ironic exception of rockets, will be fully electric.
Even planes?
Yes, everything.
When?
Planes, trains.
By when?
Everything. It'll never be like a 100% conversion. Like we still have some steam engines running around, and some people still ride horses. But it's a pretty tiny percentage. So I think it'll be the same with gasoline. I think in the future people will look back on the gasoline era the way that we look back on the steam era today.
So you're using battery technology. You're doing Tesla, which is an electric car. You have solar panel. You have an interest in business in solar panels.
Yeah.
Do you think solar energy is the future?
I think it's super obviously the future. Absolutely. In fact, I mean, if you think about it, the world is almost entirely solar powered already, in that we would be a frozen ice ball at about 3 or 4 degrees Kelvin, or close to absolute zero, without the sun. And the sun powers our entire system of precipitation. The ecosystem
and
is,
the agriculture.
Yeah, but apart from a tiny number of exceptions, almost all life is solar powered.
All right, another great technology you've talked about that most people think of as out of a movie. Explain how it would work. Let's say it's New York to Boston or LA to San Francisco. I get into a tube, and it's almost like air hockey. The way it works is I strap myself into a seat and...
Well, it would actually feel maybe like the Space Mountain ride at Disney World. And the G-loading would actually be less than what people experience at Space Mountain. So if you can handle Space Mountain at Disneyland, you should be able to handle the Hyperloop. It'll feel super smooth because, as you mentioned, it would use air skis, like a air hockey table, but with the air jets on the pod side as opposed to the tube side. So it would just be, it would be smooth as glass.
10 years from now, what will car travel look like in America?
10 years from now? I think there's going to be a lot of electric cars on the road. Well, certainly vastly more than there are now.
Driverless cars?
I think we'll be in the steep portion of the adoption of electric cars in 10 years.
You think hybrids are a transition that will fade away?
Absolutely. Yeah, they're like a sort of an amphibian, I mean, there was a role for amphibians when life was moving from the oceans to land, but in the end, very few amphibians remained.
It's a good point to end on. Thank you. Thank you.